Hey everybody, Jason here. Welcome back to Linux for Everyone, and welcome home. I have been on a Linux journey now for about 3 years or so, and it has been incredible. There have been twists and turns and unexpected surprises, unexpected disappointments, and the community along the way has just been an absolute joy. This journey has taught me so much. It has brought me so much. There have been a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities between my Linux journey and my journey as a Linux-based content creator. And so I'm here to give you some good news and some bad news. And to some of you, to many of you, this might just be all around great news. No bad news to speak of. We'll see. This is the last episode of Linux for Everyone as you have come to know it. But it's not the end of the show. Not at all. The next episode of Linux for Everyone that comes down the pipe, I will be joined by my brand new permanent co-hosts, Schickel and Jerry Morrison. Now, Schickel, if you've seen him around the community or on the YouTube channel here and there, you know that he is an absolute riot. He is incredibly insightful for his age, and he's just fun. Like, he's fun to talk with. And also sitting down in the co-hosting chair is my friend and songwriting partner in crime, Jerry Morrison. And Jerry has a wealth of production experience. He's been in a band that was his life for quite a while. The band is Bleach. You should check them out. He has a ton of technical experience with both macOS and Linux. And the reason that I am having them join the show is there's many, many reasons for it. So let me lay them out for you very quickly. Number one, I can't do this alone anymore. And I'm choosing not to. But the time investment for doing a solo production like this is enormous. From the time and the research that it takes to have the knowledge and experience of what you're going to discuss on the show, the time planning for a guest slot, the interview itself, the setup time, the editing, the post-production, the show notes, the thumbnails. There's just so much that goes into it, and it's a burden that I feel like if I continue to do this solo, the show will suffer, as it has, let's be honest. And you know what? This is an important aspect of this change. Jerry and Schickel will keep me honest, and they will help ensure that there is an objective approach to all the discussions that we have, We're all going to have different opinions. We all have different backgrounds. And sometimes it's really easy for me, being like Mr. Positive about everything, to slip into this role where I am a little bit complacent and a little bit of a cheerleader instead of asking the hard questions. And having this group dynamic, I think, will enable us to ask those hard questions and to talk about them fairly and in an approachable way that a lot of people can enjoy and relate to, without dragging it down into the negative and the toxic side of things. And one of the other reasons is I love talking to these guys, and we have such a fun rapport, and I think that's going to come across in the show. I can't wait. We've had a couple pre-production meetings already, and what's really cool about this is it's going to be a video first type of production, but you won't really lose anything in the audio. So it will be on the Linux for Everyone YouTube and Odyssey channels, but it will also be coming down the RSS feed. Wherever you are subscribing to the podcast right now, you're still going to get it right there, so you don't need to do anything. The plan right now is to do the show every other week, so there will be 2 new episodes of Linux for Everyone per month. And we're going to switch up the content a little bit, but also bring back some what I think were crowd favorites, like the Discovery of the Week. The app spotlight type of thing that I love to do, and love shining a light on the open source magicians out there who are making our desktop Linux experience so much better and just so much better. And there's going to be some new segments as well that sort of expand the the content opportunities that we have, as well as the guests. It goes without saying that that you guys deserve a lot of thanks for your patience. I know that the last, year or so with the Linux for Everyone podcast has been all over the place in terms of tone, in terms of content, in terms of frequency. And this is a genuine attempt to fix all of that and to have a better show and to have better conversations and to hopefully try to take this thing to the next level, as I've been able to do on YouTube. The video side of Linux for Everyone is blowing up, and by now I hope that you've at least seen a few videos. I would love for you to check all that stuff out on either YouTube or Odyssey. So for this episode, Linux for Everyone episode 53, the last solo show, I guess, I wanted to take care of some unfinished business. I recorded an interview with System76's Aaron Honeycutt back in July when I was at the Sea for the summer, and I wanted you to hear some of that conversation. And I also wanted you to hear some of my thoughts on Valve's Steam Deck again, but now I know in episode 52 that was kind of the sole focus of the episode, but things are really happening. It's really exciting, and it's not just exciting for Linux gamers. It's exciting because it is elevating the profile of the Linux desktop in general. And it's super, super cool what's been happening. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to say goodbye. And when I come back, I'll have some company. So without further delay, here is my conversation with Aaron Honeycutt of System76. And then once that is over, I'll go ahead and cut right into my thoughts on the new developments with Valve's Steam Deck. All right, guys, enjoy. Mr. Aaron Honeycutt, welcome to Linux for Everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we were talking a little bit before I hit record that we have chatted before. We actually met in person at Superfan 3 back in the pre-COVID era of life. Mm-hmm. And you were actually recently on episode 52 for a few minutes during that Twitter Spaces conversation about the Steam Deck. And so this has been a long time coming, though. I think we've been talking about doing this for a few weeks at least. This seems like the right time because Linux gaming is at an all-time hype, I feel like. And what I told Aaron, you guys, is I just said, look, Aaron, what you need to know is Aaron works at System76, and we'll talk a little bit about his position there, but he's not here as a System76 spokesperson. He's here as a community member, a Linux enthusiast, and a gamer. So that's kind of the way that I'm framing this conversation. Why don't we kick it off by having you tell us a little bit about your role at System76 and actually how you came to be at System76.
I'm a happiness engineer is what we're called there, on part of the happiness team in technical support. I started in September of 2017, whatever it was, 4 years ago-ish, because next month will be my 4-year anniversary there. I started because I was trying to look around and get into an actual technical job before I was 25, before having a quarter-life crisis. I think I met Emma at Southeast Linux Fest, and I was told to apply there. Got interviewed, got wanting to meet up with Carl, then I got scared, crapless, basically. Kind of chickened out, reapplied the next year, and then went all in, and now I'm here.
That's awesome. So why did you chicken out? What happened?
It was a big move because it was like, at the time it was kind of required to move, and I'm like not really financially on my own to because I was living with my parents at the time, so I wasn't really financially stable to that's going to cost $2,000 to get a U-Haul truck to move across the country, basically.
That is a
That was
big
like
commitment.
one.
Not even the money part, but just
Yeah.
uprooting your whole life and going across the country. But it was, I mean, it was to Colorado, so that's not a terrible thing. So what's kind of an average day as a happiness engineer? Or is there an
Well,
average day?
most of most of the team is working remote at this point. I'm going into the office because my partner works at System76 as well in the production team. So it just made more sense rather than me driving 4 times each way back and forth to drop her off, work from home, pick her up. I just started going at the same time, and I got my own little desk up front, and I got a nice upgraded desk this time, standing desk and all that stuff. So I go in, get started in the day, talk with people, sometimes get some coffee, and clock in and start helping people out.
Man, you know what's weird about when you talk about the office, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think of it as more of a like a warehouse or a production facility, but my biggest memory of being there at System 76 HQ was the glow in the dark Nerf battle during that Thalio launch, and that was, I don't know, this the whole spirit and atmosphere of that place was so infectious and so much fun, and quite honestly, someday, if I stop doing this, I would love to work at System 76 just because the people there seem so awesome.
Yeah, it's always a fun day talking to people. Just it's always fun to have a lot in common with your coworkers and just don't feel like you're working. You're just kind of like having conversations that you would have on the internet, but in person. It's just a whole different vibe here.
I have to get used to
It's
the whole having conversations in person again, because that's it's been a minute since I've done that with anyone but a couple Croatian friends here, maybe twice in the last year.
I could tell you, like, after a year or so plus working from home, it's just a week in the office. I'm like, oh, I miss this. Like, I could just walk up to somebody and just have an impromptu conversation rather than planning on messaging on the inner office messaging client.
Yeah, I think we need that. Everyone will always say that we're social creatures, and as much as some of us like solitude and privacy, you can't do that forever. So does System 76 have any crazy outlandish rules, like you have to use Pop! OS and you have to use like an Oryx Pro or a Galago or anything weird like that?
When I was working from home, I've had Pop! OS on my machine here, my custom build here, and Pop! OS on the work system that I have, but I was also dual booting. I have my own custom desktop at home that I was using for work from home, but I also have the Orcs Pro that I use at the office. That's like the work machine. But there's not any restrictions, and they'll just ask you like, "Hey, what do you like about this one? What do you like about that one?" And just that's your personal preference. As long as you can get what you need done, doesn't I don't think it really matters as strongly as you would think. And it definitely has helped me in support having more experience with other distributions and stuff like that, because I've worked on Fedora, I worked on Arch, I've worked on other Debian 10/11 on my Works Pro and Galago, just to have the experience.
That must be really beneficial. I mean, having all of that different desktop environment experience and package managers and all of it, just kind of learning all those different ecosystems. Does it make you ever want to distro hop? Have you stuck with the distro that you're on for a while, or do you hop around yourself personally?
I mainly stick to Pop! OS and Arch for the main part. Even my message on I guess I could just say Slack, has the Arch logo and license until 2050. That's what my thing is. So whenever there's Arch tickets, they just throw it at me, and I'm like, okay, I'll take them. I'll just take the Arch tickets. That's fine. I have my Galago I can test with things. My personal Galago.
This is something I try to do with all of my guests if we have time. And I want to hear your Linux origin story, how you first got into Linux.
I think the first distribution was probably Ubuntu, like a huge part of most people, is I think I messed around with Ubuntu 10.10, so it was predate Unity. I think that was my first distribution. It's kind of just like, let me try this out and see how it works. And I think I had a dual boot working at the time. And it was quite a fun experience because my strongest memory of it was I was trying to customize Windows. So I messed around with some system files, as one probably shouldn't do. But I did back up the file before I did it. And when I rebooted, Windows is like, nope, not having this. So I booted back into Ubuntu, go in the Windows file system, restored the backup, rebooted, and Windows is happy again. So Ubuntu literally saved Windows. That's my biggest memory.
I've heard of that happening quite a bit. Throwing in a live USB, or back in the day, a live CD, I guess. Those were things once upon a time. Yeah, that live file system has been around for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think Debian was a distro that started like KN or something that was Debian based. It started
like
that trend. It's
Knoppix?
been around.
Knoppix, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was that one. That was the one that really started live distribution from my memory. Like, because you'll see that load from time to time in the earlier distros, since then they rebranded it and stuff.
That's something that never ceases to blow my mind, even like 3 years into this Linux journey, is the fact that I can have a fully functional operating system on a USB stick.
It's amazing how often that will be helping with just general troubleshooting too. Like, it's just amazing. I'm like, oh, it works here, then it works, then it's something on your OS level. Then if it's not hardware, if it works in a live disk.
Yeah. You guys, so when you sell System76 hardware, you do your absolute best, as far as I know, to support any Linux distro or Windows. Is that right?
There's a lot of best effort on the other distros part. It's been kind of moving a little bit more, but not officially more, at least from my testing that I've done, because I've updated documentation and stuff to cover other distros that I can from past experience. It's just kind of a best effort kind of thing. For Windows, we try to help you install it and get that working, because we understand there's some software that you still need that for to just get your daily work done. Like, you want the machine to work at the end of the day for what you need it to do.
Has there ever been anything that just completely stumped you, or the team?
I know the one case when I started really noticing, like, if someone had something plugged into an outlet and they had a cleaning service come around, because it kept shutting down. The system kept shutting down at a certain time when I was looking at things, and figured out that I could figure out when it was shutting down. Bring it in, nothing happened at the factory warehouse. And then we send it back. It started doing it again, and then looked at time frames, and I figured out that the cleaner was disconnecting it during when the cleaning at night.
Oh my god! You figure that out by just looking at the activity logs of the system and talking to the client.
There's a shutdown. I can't remember the command that would show you like the times and stuff when the shutdown occurred. There's also like an abrupt shutdown in Journal CTL that'll show you the timestamp, kind of.
Wow.
That was the funniest memory that I've had so far.
One more System76 question. What is your favorite thing about working there?
I think the people, honestly.
All right, that was too easy. No, because we kind of both said that already. All right, that was too easy, Aaron.
Okay.
What is your favorite hardware release the System76 has ever done?
The launch.
The keyboard, really?
Is that also too easy?
No, it isn't. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting one of the Thalios, honestly.
I mean, the Thalios, I love the Thalio. The Thalio line is amazing at what it does. I was never so hyped for a product as the keyboard. It's like, I just love the idea that I can have multiple layers programmable to my OS. That super key is a generic super word that just isn't distro agnostic. It's distro agnostic to the core. It's just a great product.
Well, and plus it's built from the ground up inside of the company, and that's pretty incredible, you know?
It's the first product that just really pushed like, hey, you want to use it on Linux? Here you go. If you want to use it on a Mac, here you go. If you want to use it on Windows, here you go.
Yeah.
Just it's a great entry point.
I've got to get one.
It just feels
someday.
like it completes the setup.
But honestly, I'm going to have to just buy one if I'm ever in the States again, because it's just too expensive to get one here to Croatia.
Yeah, I saw the tweet about like $100+ for international shipping is a bit harsh. Yeah, it's the biggest pain point I think for a lot of companies. Just international shipping costs, just outrageous.
Well, yeah, and we won't get into it because I did talk to Jeremy about that quite extensively. But it is a shame because I always run into people from Europe or other countries outside of Europe who are like, man, I really want to buy an Oryx Pro or a Thalio or even a Launch, but I'm going to go to somebody more local because it's just too expensive. It's not System76's fault. It's not the price. It's not the MSRP. It's just like you said, it's the shipping and the VAT and the import fees and the headaches and About 3.5 weeks ago, Juno Computers shipped me a couple review laptops. I got them 2 days ago. They're in the UK, so they're physically not too far from us, right?
Right.
But in the world of bureaucracy and Brexit, well, they're like planets away from us. So
yeah, I had followed that little.
Yeah, so
misfortune.
For the audience, I'll just kind of sum it up real quick. It's quite a story, but I won't get too far into the weeds. Basically, they shipped these, and what happens when they arrive at Croatian Customs is they will email the receiver, and they will say, okay, here's this shipment that's coming for you, and we need proof of payment, and then we will determine if the value is what you say it is, and then we'll charge you the appropriate VAT and, import fees or whatever. Doing what I do, that makes it really tricky, and they don't really have any rules for what, a review sample, a loaner, something that you send back that you didn't pay for. It's not in their vocabulary. They just don't get it. Like, they don't know what to do about it. So every time I have to do this power of attorney and like fill out all these papers saying, okay, this is why I'm getting it, and this is who I am, and this is what the value is, but the shipper is paying all the required fees. And so then they have to go to the shipper, and so Juno says, yes, well, we're sending Jason these laptops for review. We're a Linux laptop company out of the UK. And Croatian Customs comes back and they're like, well, we've never heard of you. You're not Dell, IBM, or HP. So then there's a delay there. And then they're telling Juno that they don't believe that I'm a YouTuber or, somebody who is in a position to do this in Croatia, right? And so then I had to send them, Aaron, links to a couple of videos where I'm actually filming out on the sea. and then a link to this article I did a couple years ago about watching the World Cup through the eyes of an American in Croatia. And so we both had to sort of like prove our cases. It was insane.
Oof.
So that's why I don't actually review a lot of hardware that does not originate outside of Europe anymore. It's just a massive, massive headache, and it's a shame.
Want to talk about games?
Oh, yeah, I do. I really, really do. At the risk of doing 2 episodes in a row on gaming, it doesn't bother me because I have gone heavily down the rabbit hole. And really, with apologies to people who aren't gamers, this is still an important conversation for any Linux enthusiast to listen to, I think, because Valve has been, for the last 9 or 10 years, they have been on this path to free to free gamers from Windows and to free themselves from Windows and to have this backup plan and to boost up Linux into, well, a first-class citizen when it comes to gaming. And they tried the Steam machines, and that was a failure because it was too soon. And because Valve wasn't in charge of the hardware, and they weren't in charge of that total vision, I think. But even if you're not a gamer, I think this is a very, very important time. It's an awesome time, actually, to be a Linux user, because it's nuts. We're in this place where, so not only did Linus Tech Tips have the recent hands-on from Valve HQ, but then they had the WAN show, and they spent like 45 minutes talking even more about Steam Deck. And here's a quote from Linus Sebastian. He says, "It's about a lot more than Steam Deck. This is gaming on Linux, guys. It's not just Windows anymore. It's not just Intel anymore. This is the ultimate underdog story. You've got AMD, Linux. It's exciting." And the whole segment was like that, where Linus was basically like, I'm so hyped about gaming on Linux, and I'm so hyped about how this frees gamers from, the Windows ecosystem, gives them a choice. And it's just, and then you've got, mainstream press and news outlets covering this thing. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say that by this time next year, Valve may have sold 1 million of these things that run Linux.
I would think so as well. I think one of the biggest things that they did was not advertise Linux as strongly, because I've seen Austin Evans and other prominent YouTubers at tech just talking about it, and they don't even need to mention it. Just like, hey, this is a mobile gaming system.
Yeah, Linus summed it up by saying this is a Ultrabook crammed into a smaller form factor. And I was like, man, that makes it actually seem really affordable.
We were playing, what's the name? Volin, the game in Rust the other night, and Alex on our team was playing it on the Framework laptop, and he's just like, this is almost on par with everything else I could experience on something this size. It's just gotten much better gaming performance-wise.
Yeah, that's true. Even the performance has when Proton first launched, the experience was okay, but the performance hit was pretty big. And now it's gotten to the point where you really can't tell the difference. I did a comparison on our YouTube channel of this new game called The Ascent, which is awesome, by the way. It's a cyberpunk action RPG with twin stick shooter combat. It's excellent. Anyway,
ooh, I've seen of it, and I kind of want to get it now. I've been wanting to get it once I first saw mention of it, and like, that sounds pretty amazing.
But I did a side-by-side comparison of the game maxed out, graphics maxed out at 4K on Kubuntu and on Windows 10. And there was maybe a 3 or 4 FPS difference in favor of Windows, but still, that's almost negligible,
Yeah, especially like most average consumers, at least on the Steam Deck in question, is most users are probably not even going to realize that they can optimize this and change the settings. It's just going to be at the default optimization that they're used to seeing on a console, quote unquote, and they're not even going to notice that difference there, because it's locking at that a frame per second, so you're just not even going to notice that difference. It's going to play out as you expect it to, and you're not even going to know what underlining is running it.
Yeah, it's there's so much. Every day I keep running into people who are like, dude, think about the fact that not only is this a handheld PC gaming console, I don't even know what to call it. Valve calls it a computer, so let's call it a computer. It's a handheld computer that plays games, I guess. I don't know what to call it. But they're like, man, yeah, do you realize this is a handheld game console where you could like take your Steam screenshots and then crop them and share them. And You can have all of your streaming services just in bookmarks on Steam. And you can do video editing, and you can dock it and use your Steam Deck as a second display for like Twitch chat while you play. And it's just, it's a computer, so you can do anything with it. And it's a Linux computer, so you can do a hell of a lot with it.
You're not limited on what you can even do with the file system, packages, anything really at that point. It's an unlocked computer.
I guess my point is, I think this is going to eventually make some waves and eventually raise the profile of Linux in the mainstream. I don't know how that's going to shake out exactly. I don't know. Is everyone going to start just talking about Arch and Kubuntu if this thing sells 5 million units? Are there going to be other companies like ASUS and Alienware selling their own Steam Decks, right? Alien Deck, ASUS Deck, with their own designs, but the same Steam OS, I mean, what if somebody comes along after Valve and makes the design even better? What if Razer, what would Razer's take on a Steam Deck look like? That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking about like 5 years out. And it kind of blows my mind.
I think it's kind of interesting because Razer in question already have like adapters to phones and stuff. I'm just wondering, they already have experience with making basically handhelds. Wonder what their take would be on it. And with that sidetrack to making, hey, now we have Razer programs and drivers in Linux because, well, they wanted to make basically a Steam Deck competitor.
Yeah, see? There you go. Like, that's something I had never even considered. Effect. That's something I had never even thought about until you said it. I am so excited to see what other revelations come out once this thing actually launches and gets into people's hands.
And if you get to the mass market, like imagine the bug reports and stuff that could contribute upstream and just fix things that we might not have normally seen in us, I guess, quote unquote, advanced users' eyes. The beneficials, or you can't even think of it right now, how far it could go.
Yeah, I just, I really, my sincere hope here is that Valve is not just giving everyone lip service about working with anti-cheat vendors and, saying kind of vague statements like, we haven't seen a game yet that won't run on the deck. Okay, well, are you avoiding games like Destiny 2 and Fortnite? Are those games working?
Gears 5 has never launched from the get-go on Proton. It's never worked. At least I've never gotten past like the very intro like logo of the company.
That's
using anti-cheat that's never been fully loading.
The workaround there is the fact that Steam Deck is also basically a portable Xbox. So Xbox Cloud, and there you go. But that's not what people want. They want
click and go from the get-go.
People do not want to click install Gears 5 and then have it not launch, because that's a deal breaker. That's this thing's a lemon. This doesn't work. I want to send it back. That's what the majority. I know there's a lot of people out there saying, people will just install Windows on it. No, they won't. For the same reason they won't get a new laptop from Best Buy or Amazon and install Linux on it, because people don't do that.
They don't want to deal with the hassle. They want something that just works out of the gate.
Exactly. So, do you think, what is your opinion on the overall compatibility picture when this thing launches?
I don't know. It's difficult to tell because they haven't released anything from what I can see about SteamOS 3.0. There's nothing on GitHub from what I can tell that similar to how they uploaded there. I'm hoping. I can't think of a moment where they haven't actually owned up to what they've said to some degree. I honestly think that some are not going to work out of the gate, and they're just going to ship like the most AAA games that maybe they'll go on based on Proton DB and see what the main games like Dota or Destiny 2 and get those working, and then they'll just call it a day for launch and then continue working on it. That's, I think, my best hope is they'll call it that, hey, it's working, we'll push some more out updates later, the Proton, as the release goes out. That's the best case scenario, I think, for me, for my eyes anyway.
I think that's fair. I think that's realistic. On the other hand, Valve only has to optimize. Technically, they only have to optimize that game for one device and one operating system.
That's like, I've always like consoles to some degree. I love gaming on PC in general, but I just like the user endpoint of consoles. Just like there's only one targeted device that you have to focus on, maybe 3-ish, depending on the multiple upgrades of a generation lifetime of a console, like PS4 Slim, PS4 Pro, and stuff.
Oh, sure.
But realistically, you only have one targeted hardware point versus thousands on PC.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. When you look at Proton DB, you know, if you go in there and look at something, I don't know, pick any AAA game and go take a look, you will inevitably never see this game worked flawlessly across the board. It's always going to be like, this game wouldn't even launch on Ubuntu 20.04 with Proton Experimental, but it plays flawlessly on Arch with Proton Experimental. Because there's, you know, there's all the hardware combinations, and who knows how many things could be affecting Proton as a compatibility layer, right? And so, yeah, I think Valve's job is a lot easier when they're not saying, guys, every game on Steam is going to work on Linux. They're saying it's going to work on the deck. Mm-hmm. But it's only, and you know what's interesting about that? I feel like perhaps this is a hot take. Okay, if you guys want my hot take, I think the obvious part is that this is going to eventually benefit all of Linux gaming across the entire desktop Linux ecosystem. But my hot take is that I think it's going to benefit AMD users more.
Makes complete sense, honestly, because they're hitting AMD hardware directly from the bottom up, basically.
Yeah.
All AMD.
And then if you ever get developers, you know, all it takes is a certain... Linux gaming might not have the chicken and egg problem anymore. There's so many possibilities and variants that could play out here. And I'm really excited to see it play out, however it happens. It's not going to be bad. If Valve has already sold, in the first 24 hours, allegedly, 100,000... Well, reserved, excuse me. Reserved 100,000 units. Who knows how many they've done by now? And
3 of those units are System76 employees on the
Awesome. I've got one reserved. I'm the high end one. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just a numbers game. It's just numbers talk. And what happens? What happens if by December 2022, Valve has sold 1 million Steam Decks? Do you know what that means? That means the Linux gaming user base on the Valve hardware survey doubles. It doubles. It's like 2%.
I know I saw.
Okay, but that's like 2 million users, and I mean that it's just, it could snowball. We don't know. Let's keep talking about gaming. I don't know. What do you play? What are your staples?
I was one of the lucky few that's recently got a PS5, so I've been kind of crunching that around a lot with playing the new Ratchet and Clank game. So I have to play that, obviously, because it came with the console.
Man,
100% of that.
I love Ratchet and Clank. Yep.
And then I played Spider-Man Miles Morales, 100% that. Now I'm trying to play Fallen Order, Star Wars Fallen Order, 100% that.
So you're a 100% guy. You're an achievement hunter, basically.
To some degree. When I got I've played both Spider-Man games for the PS4 and 5, and I've gotten those 100%, including DLC. So I'm like, this is an itch. No, bad. So yeah, I've been kind of on that streak, but now I'm discovering what games will work on Pop! OS on this ultra wide. And so far, Halo has been like the top one that really works really well on it, surprisingly.
I mean, I have so many amazing memories playing the original Halo on Xbox. Me and my friends, Jeff and Sean, we would frequently like stay at each other's houses overnight. And this, kids, was back in a time where you lugged over your Xbox and your television. Okay? Not your flat screen television, your big ass television with the, CRT style, I don't know what they were called.
I think they're CRT, like the big tube ones.
Yeah. I think they were CRT televisions back then. Maybe flat screens were coming into the picture, but I couldn't afford one, so I had an old school one. That was a LAN. That was multiplayer, folks. Lug your Xbox and your TV to your friend's house. Too. But yeah, so that to me is a timeless franchise, and I want that to work because I love the multiplayer, and I don't always, I don't really have the time to like connect with people and do a custom game and disable EAC so that you can play custom multiplayer with certain people. But yeah, I'm with you. I hope that Valve solves this problem, and if they do, then we are in for a wonderful ride.
It's going to be a really interesting ride. I'm trying to get back in the Warframe because it's launching crossplay soon. I'm like, I want to do this. Let me start a clan. I want to do this again. Warframe. I love more games that you work with other people versus working against each other.
Oh man,
I don't. Yeah, like it kind of annoys you when you're like, are they better or is the internet connection killing me?
Well, it's also stressful. The competitive aspect. I enjoy playing Call of Duty, and yes, I do that on Windows because I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly good at it, but you can only handle so much of that because it's fast-paced and it's aggressive and it's competitive. And you don't really feel relaxed at the end of a Call of Duty session. And so, yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. Like, I would like to play more co-op multiplayer games with people. And that is a good excuse for maybe a few of us to get together and play Back 4 Blood.
That'll be fun.
You just
Classic have to zombie shooting style.
Yeah, it is, and it's it looks really good too. It looks gorgeous.
I haven't watched the video just yet, but I certainly believe you because it's just, the art style is good too.
I have been for the first time ever. I am hooked on an MMO. And that MMO is Final Fantasy XIV, just like everyone else and their mother and their daughters and their cousins. And yes, folks, it runs on Linux. It runs really, really well on Linux.
Would you kick me out if I said I've never played a Final Fantasy game?
No. No. Okay. No, good. I wouldn't.
There's some people who are just like, you've never played that. I'm like, no, I didn't start at 1 when I first thought of it. I'm like, I didn't start at 1, so how can I keep going? And then I learned that it's not connected at all, kind of thing.
No.
It's like at 14, that's a long-running game.
Not connected. Thank God they're not connected. There are certain threads and certain characters that you'll see move from game to game, like Sid or like the Moogles, or but nothing. They're not really connected narratively at all. And most people started with Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I've heard that's like the highlight part of that. It's like that's where like everyone, because that was a PS1 or 2 game, I think.
PS1. Yeah. 4 discs. So, it was,
oh dear God!
I remember that game fondly. Fondly, I remember that game.
Let's not go back to that many discs.
But
games might be getting larger download size, but I don't have to worry about DVDs.
I'm not a diehard Final Fantasy fan. I mean, I haven't finished very many of them. I've only finished 7 and 13. But I don't know, man. I have hated MMOs. I tried so hard to get into World of Warcraft when I met my wife because she was a diehard World of Warcraft fan. She doesn't have time for it anymore, but it was so grindy and repetitive. I tried Guild Wars. I've tried the Old Republic, the Lord of the Rings, or not Lord of the Rings. I don't know, the Skyrim one. What is that?
Uh,
No.
Elder Scrolls
Elder Scrolls. Yeah, I
Online.
tried that. I couldn't get into it. But this one is just, I don't know.
It's
It's beautiful. It's story driven. The community is so friendly and welcoming. It reminds me of the Linux for Everyone community. And it's just a
I,
joy. It's a joy to play.
I find it funny that you say WoW was my partner behind me is playing WoW on Papuas.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
My you say WoW and my partner behind me is playing WoW on Papuas.
Ah, okay. No, I mean nothing against World of Warcraft. I
No,
couldn't
I
get
know.
into it, and
It's just funny. I tried getting into it too. It's a lot of grinding. I think Warframe is grinding too. A lot of those MMOs in general are grinding, but I think it's the fantasy setting, at least for me, that I just can't get into.
Oh, I see. I even got into Phantasy Star Online 2 for a while, but it didn't really hold me like I thought it would, not like the original did. Anyway, well, thank you for listening to the Games for Everyone podcast.
The never-ending Games for Everyone podcast. Live stream 24 hours a day.
That was a thing for people who don't know. We did try the whole Games for Everyone thing, but it just didn't work out. Maybe someday. Because I like having these conversations. I don't know if everyone enjoys listening to them, but I got to be honest with you guys. I've started this series on YouTube called Will It Linux, and it's where I try to check out brand new games and see how well they run and kind of, give an overview of the story and the graphics and the performance and any tips that you might need to play them on Linux. And I have just thoroughly enjoyed, I'm up to like 3 or 4 videos now, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed this series because I've always been a gamer at heart. And now I'm just kind of digging into it. I'm just, I guess, accepting that I'm going to be a diehard gamer. Maybe not diehard. Time allowing, I will be a diehard gamer until I die. Yeah, there's not a lot. I mean, I think it depends on the game, of course. I will never. I'm not going to recommend something that requires that you install like bleeding edge Mesa or NVIDIA drivers and go into configuration files and all that,
Oh God,
no,
yes.
absolutely not.
I had to do that.
If you have to do that, it will not Linux. In my book, it will not Linux.
I had to do that for Supreme Commander 2 at first, and then Proton eventually updated to fix it. Borderlands 3.
Oh my God.
And media codex issues.
You just reminded me that Supreme Commander exists. Oh my God, man.
Fine on Linux. The second one, at least.
That game and Age of Empires and Rise of Nations. I went through this RTS phase, and I was hooked so hard on those 3 franchises. Age of Empires, Rise of Nations, and Supreme Commander. Good times.
It's amazing. Doom Eternal or Borderlands 3 had to have like a video codex thing installed from Windows to play one of the videos in the very beginning of the game, and then you couldn't go forward because it wouldn't play. And then now that just works out of the box. You don't need to do anything, just built into Proton now. Doom Eternal had DRM. Now it just works a click of a button. There's so much amazing games now. God, so much games are working. So many games are working now that you don't have to do all those messy configurations anymore.
I know,
so
and
nice.
it's not at all good for my free time or my backlog. But really, I think we are slowly progressing towards not having to do any of that stuff. So what is God, where do we want to go from here? I don't know. I'm so afraid that we're just going to lose people because we're just talking about nothing but games, but in a sense I don't really care because I'm enjoying it. So
what's the biggest pull that you have conversation-wise, like audience-wise? Like, what do they want to hear about? That you
they want to hear about Pop! OS and Linux laptops normally, or Lenovo hardware is a big one. Really, hardware is a big one. People really love hearing about hardware. And they also, unfortunately, love hearing about snaps versus Flatpak. So if you have any opinions on that, we can...
I'm trying to package some of the popization, like pop cosmic stuff, to Arch currently. I have some things working, some things are not working. Keyboard shortcuts, I think, are the biggest thing right now.
Wait. This is potentially big news. Are you?
Oh God!
What exactly? What exactly are you? Are you talking about Cosmic?
Yeah. This is all personal, nothing official, nothing of that nature. Just kind of free time stuff.
No, I totally understand that it's not.
Yeah.
A company endorsed thing. But are you going to get auto tiling to work on Arch?
Pop tiling works. Pop show works on Arch with Gnome 40. There's some shortcuts like Super Q for quitting isn't set by default for some reason. I think it's pulling by Pop Session package, which I'm trying to either just pull those shortcuts and set them with G settings with a shell script, bash script. But I have Pop Cosmic the dock working, and then like Workspace as an application on top left works now that everyone, because 2110 is going to have Gnome 40, so we've already been working on that. So, and now that works, but I've just been packaging the Cosmic General Extension. The docks so far have worked fine, and the theming and this stuff has already been packaged in ER anyway, so just made a bash to pull those in manually for me. Popify, as they say. It's funny when you work on these side projects, you don't view them as like big news, and then other people view them differently.
That's, I think, a sign of someone just being humble about what they're doing. You know about Proton Up, and I think I've actually talked about Proton Up on the podcast before.
It's on the Gaming on Pop West article as well.
To catch everyone up real quick, Nassif is the developer of Proton Up, and he's also the guy who's responsible for the majority of the Linux for Everyone thumbnails on YouTube and Odyssey. Guy is super, super talented when it comes to graphic design, and apparently he can also code. And he just made this very simple CLI utility that automatically installs Glorious Agrol's Proton GE. And think of Proton GE as sort of like a bleeding edge rolling version of Valve's Proton. It's just a little bit ahead of the curve and released more frequently. Anyway, he just, he put this thing out into the world, and he said he had a few hundred downloads, maybe 1,000 downloads or something. And I did a video on it last week. And it was one of my most successful videos in the first few days. And he was just like, I cannot believe that so many people who are Linux gamers who use Proton, who want an auto-updating CLI utility for Proton are into this. And I said, well, good code is good code. Like the best software does one thing and does it well. And that's exactly what this does. It's simple, no frills, and it does what it's advertised to do. And people like it and they want it. And then like 3 or 4 hours after that video going live, it was in the Arch AUR, because of course it was. I love it. But going back to the auto tiling, you have to realize how much of an impact System76 really had, because they have made the concept of window tiling approachable. They have basically, I do not want this to come across as an insult, guys. So just keep that in mind when I say this. They have basically appled auto tiling. I mean, they have appled window tiling is what they've done. They have taken this cool idea and they've made it like approachable and accessible for the masses. And now, what I see happening now is so many people are saying, man, I really want auto tiling on KDE. I really want auto tiling on this distro or on this distro. That's the kind of impact this has made.
I remember the discussions, like everyone switching to i3 and trying that out, and I moved to i3, and just learning the keyboard shortcut keys and having the reference card on my desk to memorize how to do things.
Nobody wants to do that. Okay, maybe some people do, but nobody wants to do that.
It was fun being pulled in those meetings about usability of pop shells very beginning, like what keyboard shortcuts make the most sense. What have your experience like when you're using i3? What is the best keyboard shortcuts that don't make sense? How do you make it better? Because I had been using i3 with like 3 monitors, and most other people in the office, engineers, were using it with 3 monitors, at least 2.
You interact with a lot of Linux users, and I'm guessing some of those people might be new Linux users. For anyone who wants to maybe make the switch to Linux or at least check it out, what is your best advice for someone who wants to come to Linux?
Probably would try the live disk, because from the live disk you can see what hardware is detected, what works. Does my Wi-Fi work? Does my touchpad work? Does my Bluetooth work? You can just see, is this something that I can use? And you can even install it on a flash drive if you want to keep things around. Of course, that's not the most straightforward thing, but just seeing whether this works with your hardware and just
that's true. That's true. Seeing if it works with your hardware.
It's something that you can use. Something if you can use for your workflow. Community is also a pretty big aspect, I think. Even at the worst days, I think it's still one of our biggest aspects.
We do have bad days. But so does everyone.
I've seen mechanical keyboards subreddit go downhill, so I don't think it's something exclusive.
I think that anytime you gather a certain number of people together about something they're passionate about, that's inevitable.
But it also brings out a lot of the passion.
I think that is infectious when it comes to this community. I've not seen anything like it. Where do we want to take this now? Boy, you kind of dodged that snap versus Flatpak question a little bit.
Do you want me to?
No, I really don't. I don't want to get into the.
I don't.
It just turns toxic. It really does. It brings out. I don't know.
You think it's the audience is gonna turn it toxic, or you think one of us has like a stronger opinion about it, one versus the other?
I don't want to say my audience will turn toxic about it, but it's just, I don't know. It's I guess it's not something that I want to have shoved at the end of a episode. I guess if anything, it deserves its own discussion. I think it needs to be with people representing Snap and Flatpak. It was interesting though. Did you see that tweet from Alan Pope?
Yeah, the general one or the one about the Zoom client?
The general one about kind of the atmosphere that he perceived at Canonical regarding desktop users and snaps.
Yeah, it kind of hurt a little bit reading it, to be honest, because I think both platforms should exist and are beneficial in the grand scheme of things.
See,
we've seen multiple times what happens with one vendor or one product is the only one on the market, and just innovation just doesn't happen.
I think that whenever you have 2 similar products or similar platforms, that eventually the community using those platforms will decide who the winner is. And I agree with you. I think that right now, both of these solutions are great. And I think they both bring things to the table that people need.
I don't really know which one is going to do it, because we have competing package managers that do basically the same thing in different ways, which never have been taking the de facto, but take the crown, basically. None of them really have in the grand scheme.
To me, I really don't. I don't care which one. I use both. For example, I vastly prefer the Snap of OBS. I think that Alan Pope and Martin Wimpress actually did some work on that before they left Canonical, and it's fantastic. So that's the only version of OBS that I will use. And there's certain packages that I'm just familiar with that I know are snaps, and so I'll just automatically install those instead of researching if they're on a Flatpak. I don't know.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just matters and which one gets you the result to working software that you need at the time. I use Flatpaks on both Pop and Arch. Like, it just, I know that I can grab some things if I need to grab something a little bit faster than even the Arch will push out, or just things that I want to, because Flatpaks generally just install on .local if you're installing them as a user. So you just back up .local, restore it to whatever distro you want.
Yeah,
at the end of the
nice.
day.
That's nice. You seem like you probably are someone who has to either for testing or just for personal exploration, someone who maybe wipes their system quite a bit and, does a lot of backing up and does a lot of restoring. What do you think is the best solution for users like me and like you who are constantly checking out new distros? What's the best backup and restore solution for you?
It kind of depends on what you're going for. The main important thing for me personally is files. Like, I can reinstall programs fairly easy at any point. It's the files that are most important to me. So I just use mostly TUXEDO, which also has a time scheduling feature with it as well. I would move the Pika backup, which is written in Rust and it's a native GTK application, but it doesn't have a timer on it, so it doesn't schedule backups for me. So for me personally, TUXEDO is kind of my de facto backup program, no matter what distro I'm on.
That's the one that I originally recommended just because it's so easy. It's so easy to use.
Pika is actually even easier. It just, you don't have the scheduler.
Oh, so you just fire it. You just fire it off whenever you want to run the backup.
And I think you have multiple points of backups too. Like, you could point to a drive or you could point to a network storage. I have TUXEDO now finally set up the backup to Nextcloud. I own Nextcloud on the node.
Nice. Oh god, see that's my end game, right? That's my end game, is getting everything I have synced up with Nextcloud.
It's actually pretty easy for the most part, because this under settings in Nextcloud, it actually gives you like the URL you just need to copy in to the network server. You just put DAVS and then instead of HTTPS, and then tell it what folder you want to put it in.
Yes, but see, my end game also includes self-hosting that Nextcloud instance.
Yes.
Because I need a lot of space. And then I've got to get a NAS. There's so much I need to do. I recently bought 3 or 4 months ago, I bought a 4 terabyte external drive. And 1 terabyte of that is all the games that I use for benchmarking and testing. And 3 terabytes is video production. And I have used 2.5 terabytes already. Just source files and footage and video editing stuff. And it is insane how much space you use, how fast you use it when you're doing video production on a regular basis. It's bananas. So I've got to get a NAS, I've got to get a server, I've got to get so much set up. But the nice thing is that hopefully turns into content as well as I learn how to do it.
Spread the knowledge.
Well, tell us, before you go, where everybody can find you, if you want them to find you.
I'm Fishful Penguin on Twitter. I think my Twitch is AT Honeycutt. Yeah, those are the main ones. A Honeybun on Reddit. And I think those are like the major places.
Well, Aaron, it has been a blast talking to you about Linux and gaming. You've got an open door policy if you ever want to come back and do it again. You know how to find me, obviously. Anyway, yeah, it's been fun. Thank you for geeking out with me. That's kind of what I think this podcast is all about. It's me geeking out about my Linux adventure or geeking out with someone else about their Linux adventure.
I always enjoy geeking out, so I think enjoy the time and for having me on.
Yeah, you bet, man. All right, we'll do it again soon. I've got to talk about Epic's massive announcement yesterday where they are basically extending official support for Easy Anti-Cheat, which is their in-house produced anti-cheat software, to Linux and Mac OS, but that's not really the most important part. The biggest deal from this announcement is that they are also adding support for Wine and Proton. And in the headline over at the Epic developer blog, they actually call out Steam Deck. They say something like support for Linux, Mac OS, and Steam Deck. And of course, what that means is that even more of the most popular games on Steam are going to be supported now. So games that use Easy Anti-Cheat are titles like Apex Legends, Black Desert, Halo the Master Chief Collection, Gears 5, Dead by Daylight, War Thunder. So some big titles. And what that means is you're going to be able to not just play these games on the Steam Deck and on your Linux distro of choice, but you're not going to have that fear of being banned for the servers or the developers flagging you as some kind of cheater. And so that is straight up amazing. And all the developers have to do, according to Epic, is just flick a few switches in the Epic Online Services portal that they use, kind of their back end, their dashboard. So that's awesome. But what we need to do is we need to make some friendly noise and get the attention of our favorite developers who are using Easy Anti-Cheat and say, hey, please flick those switches so that I can enjoy your game on the Steam Deck. Of course, there is another big anti-cheat service out there, and that's BattlEye. BattlEye is, I know it from Destiny 2. I think that PUBG uses it. But right out of the gate, when Valve announced the Steam Deck, they made a promise. And their promise was that they were going to be working with anti-cheat developers to enable more support on Linux and thus on the Steam Deck. And with this Epic Games announcement, they have started making good on that promise. So I have high hopes that we're going to see BattlEye fall into place and that this move is going to inspire all of the other anti-cheat developers, maybe not Riot, but at least the rest of them to follow in Epic's footsteps. And Epic is a pretty big market leader, and they're a pretty big influence. So I hope that we see this, and I hope that we see it by the time the deck launches. I have been, as you can see, I put these here on purpose. I've been a huge fan of portable gaming ever since the original Game Boy was released. And I remember laying in bed, a bed that was kind of the size of this one, as a teen with, I think I had 2 games, Tetris and some Mario game. It could have been Mario or it could have been Final Fantasy Legends. I would play Tetris at night until the battery died, and I would go to sleep dreaming about Tetris, like blocks falling and working out the puzzles in my head in my sleep. That game left such an impact, and the concept of portable gaming has always been so appealing. I was really enthralled when NVIDIA released the Shield as well, because that was kind of the first big leap that took our PC gaming experience, which was at that point pretty much sitting on a desk with a keyboard and mouse, and made it portable. When I wrote my review of the NVIDIA Shield at Forbes years ago, I think the headline included something like Skyrim in bed, because that was the dream. Oh my God, I'm playing Skyrim in bed. This could not be any more amazing. Let's get to the meat of this video. My 3 hopes for the Steam Deck and 2 of my biggest fears. My number 1 hope for the Steam Deck is that Epic Games launches their own native Linux launcher. I think that would be freaking amazing. Is it destined to come true? I don't know. Is it likely? I think it is. And the reason I say Epic is because, that would be a natural extension of what happened this week with what is certainly a move that Valve influenced, right? Yes, they're competitors in a way, but they also stand to gain
from each other's advancements in the PC gaming industry. So I think that Epic should create their own launcher for the Steam Deck, and by extension, probably for, desktop Linux in general. I don't think we need to see an Origin games client because I'm not sure if all, but a lot of EA's games are already going into Steam. And you can find a lot of their games on Steam now that used to be exclusives on the Origin store. Ubisoft, kind of the same situation. The Ubisoft has some exclusives, but you do see a lot of the Uplay games on Steam as well. Epic is kind of the big holdout. Epic is the platform that seems to have more and more exclusives. Love them or hate them for that. That's totally in your right to do. But we need an Epic Games launcher on Steam, and we need it on the Steam Deck. Thank you, Motorcycle. I wonder if it could be developed kind of like a third-party contracted development for this. Because remember when Epic Games gave Lutris that $25,000 grant? There's a relationship there, and Lutris has done a lot of work getting various PC game stores and clients to work well on Linux. And so I really have to wonder, could we see Lutris developing an official Epic Games client for Linux and thus the Steam Deck? We'll see, but that's one of my big hopes. My second big hope for the Steam Deck, AMD FSR. Now, if you've seen any of the multiple videos that I've been doing on the channel about AMD's FSR, you have to agree that it has really impressive results. And what I want to see specifically is AMD FSR built in to SteamOS and to Steam, basically. So imagine just having a little toggle where you can just check, yes, I want AMD FSR active on all of my games. AMD's Fidelity Super FX resolution would be especially useful for people who want to dock their Steam Deck, plugging it into a 1080p, 1440p, 4K monitor, a hub of some kind. In my testing, AMD FSR has meant the difference between a stuttery, frustrating, unplayable mess to, hey, I can actually play this game at 1080p low graphics, fairly smoothly. And that is especially important on any type of laptop or device that just has an APU or integrated graphics, no dedicated graphics card. It means that a lot more of those AAA games become playable. And, even if they are playable already on the Steam Deck with its 800p screen, having AMD FSR just built in and working, if you want it to, means that you can play those games at higher resolutions with smoother frame rates. My third biggest hope for the Steam Deck, I want to see more Steam Decks. I would love to see big PC OEMs like Alienware, like Dell, Razer, HP, kind of create their own, put their own signature stamp on the Steam Deck and the form factor. And after all, it's an open device. It's not like these guys like a Razer or an Alienware can come along and make their own Xbox or their own PlayStation. But if the Steam Deck becomes a viable, popular, mainstream thing, if people go, this is a PC console I need, if Valve nails the user interface and they continue to go on this crusade with other developers and publishers and getting all that game support, if they do everything right, and this sells millions, it creates an industry. Of course, there are the little guys, the lesser known and more expensive handheld PC machines, but those really haven't made a huge impact in the West. And if Valve makes that impact in the West with the Steam Deck, then we see maybe all of these other competing Steam Decks come along. And what does that do? It drives down the price. These guys do the Linux gaming marketing for us, and more people are made aware of how awesome Linux gaming can be. Those are my three hopes. an official Epic Games launcher for the Steam Deck, AMD FSR built in to Steam, SteamOS, the Steam Deck, and then some competing Steam Deck machines. Now, as much as I like to stay positive, I do want to discuss the fears that I have, because I think we need to temper our expectations a little bit, and I don't think these will see the light of day. I hope that they don't, but these are my two biggest fears for the Steam Deck. Number one, I worry that Valve may not be able to produce enough to meet the demand. If they nail the marketing, if they get everything right, press is going to write about it, people are going to talk to their friends, they're going to create a lot of demand, and I fear that they might not have the capabilities to meet that demand. But then again, if there were competitors in this space, then you've got more players in the game able to produce more hardware, and while that wouldn't necessarily be a big win for Valve because it's not their hardware that they're selling, they're still putting Steam in more people's hands, and we're still getting Linux gaming in more people's hands, and so it's kind of a win-win. Anyway, let's hope they can meet the demand. I hope there is a lot of demand. And my second biggest fear about the Steam Deck is actually that people might walk away from the experience not liking Linux, having a sour taste in their mouth. Someone gets a Steam Deck for Christmas, for their birthday, they go out and buy it with their hard-earned cash, and they're under the impression that they can play Destiny 2, they can play Fortnite, League of Legends, they can play whatever is in their Steam library because they have this product called the Steam Deck, right? But they can't. They can't play them for whatever reason. You know, despite Valve's best efforts, they weren't able to get whatever game working. They weren't able to convince this anti-cheat developer to support Proton, to support Wine, to support Linux. It's possible. As humans, our nature is we tend to tell more people about a negative experience that we've had than when we have a positive experience. And if Valve isn't able to continue delivering on the promises, that it could set Linux up for failure. And I don't want to see that happen.
All right, my friends, that is going to do it for episode 53 of Linux for Everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to everyone who spreads the word and shares the tweet on Twitter, or, just anyone who engages with what I'm doing across the board. Thank you also to patrons and superfans and everyone who financially supports everything from the podcast to YouTube to the writing and everything else that I have going on. You guys are my Waddle. You are the wonderful Waddle. So, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will say hello again in a couple weeks alongside Jerry and Schickel. Until we chat again, you guys take care and take care of each other. Bye.